do you want to see, or do you want to just kind of like before we jump into kind of the news post, etc., do you want to just kind of know how popular and how important PvP has been for 14? Because I have some data that I think is really kind of interesting. I'll go ahead and show it here, guys. So if you guys haven't been following, like, one of the things that I find ultimately very interesting is how people talk about MMORPGs, because I think we talk about them in a very unique and interesting way. And we can infer a couple things based off of what happened with Final Fantasy XIV. And when I show Steam charts, being that Final Fantasy XIV is on multiple platforms, people will be like, oh, but that's just Steam. Well, yeah, but it's also how gamers function. It's not just Steam, it's the entirety of it. We only have a window into kind of a piece of the pie. The whole pie happens to also be pepperoni. But we can kind of take a look at 2 slices of pepperoni and kind of be like, all right.
If I had the data on one grocery store brand in my area, there are multiple, and I saw a general trend towards buying more of one product than another, I could infer that it is possible that that product is more popular in my area at all grocery stores. I know I'm not seeing the whole picture, but this picture is probably... Unless there's just only one group of people that shop, unless only PvPers play on Steam, and now no PvPers play on any other platform. Right. That is unlikely.
That would be so interesting if that actually ended up being true. But the chances are absolutely abysmal that that's the case. In fact, I'd say if that was the case, buy some lottery tickets, because we're going to the moon, baby. But
so if it's low on Steam, it's low everywhere. If it's high on Steam, it's high everywhere.
Now, another thing that I will also state, I don't think concurrency, especially in a theme park game like Final Fantasy XIV, is an important factor. A lot of people seem to make that a value of pride, and as a Final Fantasy XIV player, I love it when Final Fantasy XIV's on top. Not gonna lie, the Final Fantasy XI player in me was really happy that Final Fantasy XIV smacked WoW in the face last year, but when we actually break down the numbers, like I guess the competition between MMO players really isn't all that it's cracked up to be. It's just a bunch of people with a bunch of awesome pride in their game. Sometimes some people take it too far, but so note that we're going to dive into some numbers just here for you guys, and I'd love to know y'all's thoughts as well. So sound off in the comments. We'll just turn this into a light video. Like, favorite, subscribe, and share. Smash that like button if you haven't already, like your mama told you to. And we're just going to kind of be silly on this regard.
This is a surprise post. It's brought to you by the surprise support from Cryptionics. Then.
Absolutely. Cryptionics dropping, 50 gifted subs over on Twitch? Guys, check your Twitch. You might have gotten a gifted sub today if you haven't already, which gives you ad-free viewing. And if you haven't been following the drama over at Twitch, they're pushing on those ads. So those gifted subs actually help just overall improve your viewing experience as we're on the race. Also, guys, Chris, he's almost like 30 levels ahead of me. I've been chipping away as best as I can without burning out. Leveling Ninja. Next, it appears Dragoon's going to be on the block. So
and you like spent time with your kids and other stuff. Like what a
like a
what
dad.
A weak gamer off having like a family vacation. Man,
well, spending time with the family. Anyway, so here's something that's just foundationally interesting. From the launch of Endwalker to 6.1, Final Fantasy XIV lost 90% of its concurrent player base. And to say that means nothing. It's okay, who gives a crap? Nobody, because people trust that Final Fantasy XIV will continue on. And that's just something. MMO.
Expansion launch. Hype. Everybody that has ever played within the last 2 years and a bunch of people who haven't played all play it. The majority of those people are going to go back to not playing.
Yeah. And they'll come back and you'll see that. But here's the thing. When I said, I want to talk to you guys about the impact of PvP, the changes to PvP alone. 90% dip, coming back, almost a 50% recovery in the concurrency here. And then from there, instead, where you can go back in time and you could see from the Shadowbringers dip was 75%, here on Steam. So a bigger dip, but that's also a lot more hype. We also saw a lot more people come in for the ride. Also a lot more people return. That's what we talked about as these two massive colliding waves. From the PvP update, as opposed to seeing bigger dips and bigger drops in the player base from a 0.1 or a 0.2 patch, we only see 2% and then 3%. So a total drop of 5% since they released the PvP changes, which tell me, obviously there's other aspects of 6.1 that will capture somebody's attention, but I think this is the best retention that we've seen happen after a 0.1 patch, because now that we are obviously like in the 0.5 patch, I'm going to be curious to see as these numbers shake out if we'll see a bigger recovery with 0.5, which I doubt we will. We will get some people back, but some people are also going to be like, I need to take a break. So you're not going to see like that big positive or negative movement. And so when it comes down to it, I still say like that to me tells me that the PvP changes, like outside of how I felt like they were a huge success, are numerically, I think, a really huge success for Square Enix. And I think that's going to help prove that, you know, that investment was really worth it. And hopefully we'll continue to see them invest in that kind of gameplay, because you might not be into PvP. Like, we know that there's the majority of the player base loves the PvE content, but that curated content takes a lot more money, a lot more effort to design and implement. And PvP, because of its always flexibility, how it's always going to be changing, I think essentially kind of gives a lot more variety just in a simple game mode that exists. What are your thoughts, Chris?
So with 6.2, we might see some PvP changes. At some point, we're going to get another PvP map, maybe. Kick all that way out. But with 6.2, I don't think Island Sanctuary is going to be the draw that everybody wants it to be. I think because we've kind of built it up into being the like ashes of Final Fantasy XIV content. It's really hype driven. And we don't know anything.
I am absolutely nervous about
Criterion dungeons will be something that could have some replayability. We've seen that with deep dungeons in the past. We'll get a deep dungeon with 6.3. So that the goal, let's just for a single moment assume that Steam percentage gain and loss is the greatest metric of all time in determining a game's value. Let's just take that as a base assumption. Obviously, we all agree. And, nobody will disagree with that.
Doing some cocaine over here in the corner just for the hell of it. Like,
Brian and I are not Steam players, but that's because we don't care about 14 and we don't want to drive the percentage up and down.
We do not want positive metrics being shared.
Metric. Yeah. Based on that, if PvP, let's just assume that PvP is what's driving this. And it's not that people are overall just very happy with the game, and it brought in a lot of new players, and new players don't have as much of a reason to quit. You know, you see Asmongold coming back this week; he's in Stormblood, and so you've got time, and so you've got a lot. Like when you first join this game, you have hundreds of hours of the type of content you want. There's thousands of hours in the game, but even if you subtract all the stuff that's not your thing, I don't like Golden Saucer, I don't like PvP, I don't like Ultimate Rating, like whatever you funneled the game down to, there's plenty of it for you when you first join. Now, eventually, you've weeded out all the stuff that's your favorite thing, and you either need to learn to enjoy the game differently, or you need to play a different game. Is where people end up once they've kind of caught up, because we can consume even PvP. We can consume faster than they can keep up. There are people who are saying, "I played it, I feel like after about 7,000 matches, I'm starting to kind of see the same thing over and over." It's like, yeah. So. What are they adding that has the same level of replayability? I would say Criterion Dungeons in 6.2 could potentially have this level of replayability. It looks like it's only going to have a couple of dungeons at the beginning, but we know that more are coming. And then Deep Dungeon, if you've watched people grind, I think Zeppeli got to like 180 this weekend. But if you see people doing that solo grind up Deep Dungeon, it's unbelievably tense to watch. It's crazy fun to play. Deep Dungeon could be that other thing in 6.3 that could also be more retention based. I hesitate to use that word because it's so negative in MMOs. Like retention's like this like leash that they've got that's just holding you in
retention
the game and
mechanics for the sake of retention mechanics. Yes. Like they work until they don't. Like eventually at some point, and when you break free of that that retention mechanic, you end up breaking free in a bitter way, as opposed to like, oh yeah, I'll be back. As opposed to, and most likely, like when you look at kind of the LTV, when you start looking at how like the connection rate and the adoption rate that people have, like I see this happen across all kinds of games as a service games. People will say like, I've played this game for X, like 5,000 hours, 10,000 hours, and I'm done. And then it's essentially like, there's a time, there's a healing period, but eventually you might be like, oh, I haven't played that game in a while. And then because there's obviously some kind of connection you have with it, because no one's going to put 1,000 hours or 2,000 hours plus into an experience and end up being like, that was completely wasted. You get burned out, you can get frustrated in that moment, and it could take some time. And that's where Yoshi P's design model, has always been to take breaks. In fact, actually, you look over the course of, like, even in chat right now, 2 comments talking about, yeah, if you play on Steam, even if you're taking a break, you still might be subscribed because you still have that connection, that trust. You know that more content's on the way, and you want to be able to like jump in and jump out, and that's a healthy thing. And where our positivity on that health comes in is that you have these gamers who want that one game to rule them all. This is all I'm going to play because they've had that experience in the past, and it's been a positive one. That community, that vibrancy, that like, this is where I want to spend my time. And what ultimately happens is that you end up having those kind of breaks, and it's not about taking a break. It's like, if you don't return, like what went wrong to keep you actually from making that return? And then Kryptonic's also asking, haven't played in a while, how's the PvP? Crystal Conflict, phenomenal. And the PvP overall changes, phenomenal. Front lines and some of the other modes need to be brought up to what Crystalline Conflict, I think, delivers. And I think overall then you'll see like even a more healthier establishment of PvP in and of itself. But
we just went through another free login campaign as well. So
yeah.
I have to assume that some people that maybe had heard about this, like my brother had some free time like the weekend before last night. I didn't even think about overlapping the two. So I told him, like, I'm intentionally going to keep an eye out for the next free login campaign. Because he's a PhD student, so he's not like floating in money, and he wants to play games that he owns, and he's not looking for a handout, but like he's like, I can't justify turning on a subscription. I just can't.
Right, for that mode.
He's like, I want to play.
Yeah.
But like, maybe if he played Crystalline Conflict, it's not that he doesn't have subscriptions. It's not that he doesn't have Netflix. It's that he has to be really careful about where he puts his time and his money. And so I said, hey, well, like, how about the next free login campaign? You hop in and you do a little Crystalline Conflict with me. He's like, that'd be really fun. So like, I'm keeping an eye out for that now. And so as a good excuse, for him to come feel like, hey, I'm getting this for free. I might as well try it out. And that's like exactly what that invitation can be. It's not about necessarily the $15 for everybody, people who are budget conscious. It's also about like symbolically about what that means.
Yeah.
As somebody who has lived a good portion of my life on a very tight budget, it's also like, I'm not asking for the time card. I'm just trying to be respectful of money. And so I think that they've done a great job of making people feel like their subscription is incredibly valuable. That they come back, they try the game out for whatever reason. They came back for Endwalker, or they came back because somebody invited them, or they came back because of the free login campaign. And now Crystalline Conflict is such a big part of their life that they're like, wow, $15 for what I'm getting is a bargain. When you find yourself playing with a group of friends 2-3 nights a week, you can't go see them. I mean, a single movie ticket's $11, and it's what, $19,000 in gas to get there.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Like it's hard not to see the value when there's content like this that can be played over and over and over, for the people that are caught up. I mean, for new players, you got 300 hours of story, you got 27 million dungeons you've never done, you've got a bunch of raid series and all that. But for longtime players, PvP's been awesome.
Yeah. And so like, as I was kind of looking and studying the numbers, like I said, like looking back in time, I think essentially what we saw with Endwalker is that as it is this big footnote to the, like, this final part of the story itself, we saw a lot more people, I think, step away from the game. Also, you saw a lot of awesome games come out around the same time. Like, no one's immune to that, nor should you be, right? You should never feel bad about like, oh, I really want to go play Elden Ring. You should. It's an incredible game. The new Ninja Turtles game just came out. Absolutely phenomenal. If you guys haven't picked that up yet, it's on Game Pass, or it's like $20. And it's absolutely just a blast. I was playing that last night. And then also Final Fantasy XIV Art just came out finally on Steam Deck, etc. So I'm looking at kind of jumping into that. So like, even, as somebody who is viewed as a content creator within the Final Fantasy XIV space, like that's why, and that's will be something we'll talk about as a reaction in person. I'll see if we can't figure out our mic situation as we talk about Zepla's latest video going over how Final Fantasy XIV has changed. Guys, look forward to that. That's going to be coming up later this week as we kind of dive into that. There's a lot of like just data and numbers to impact, and when it comes down to it, all this data is in lieu of trust. If you didn't trust that Yoshi P and the team was going to keep working on Final Fantasy XIV, these numbers matter. But Yoshi P's earned that trust, and I see some of the people in the comments saying that he's like lost that trust for them, and everybody's going to have kind of a different approach for that. But when I look at these numbers, I look at the importance of adding in these different modes. So even if you didn't like PvP, the PvE side of the game is benefiting, because if that capture rate is staying on, if more people are playing the game, and actually, paying that subscription based off of this one mode alone, then I think Island Sanctuary benefits. Then I think the Criterion Dungeons benefit. Then I think the overall health and well-being of the game benefits. And so that's where I was like, when I was looking at this, I was like, that's really positive. And we haven't yet seen the impact of Asmon Round 2. Obviously that kicks off tomorrow, and so there's going to be some interesting numbers that this is just me. I like to dive into the numbers because I don't think they matter, but I think for a lot of people that they absolutely are just like, what are the numbers? I got to know, because when you're going to try to make a decision about where to put your time and investment, it's not just your money. It's not just that subscription. It's your time. Do you put that time into Final Fantasy XIV, or do you put it into another game, in that regards? And a lot of people want to make sure that they're trying to make the most informed decision as possible. But anyway, I just find it interesting. I was like, wow, that's actually really cool to see that the capture rate has been so strong from 6.1.
Especially among the pressure that you kind of flew by there. I was listening to a Guild Wars podcast this weekend from Xandri, and they were focused on some of the choices and the way the communities responded and the devs have responded and the back and forth, the internal pressures on Guild Wars. And those are all very valid. When you're having an internal community discussion, you focus on the internal things going on. What are the decisions that ArenaNet's making and all of that? There was a Guild Wars ad in that Steam page. And but there's a whole other conversation in addition to that conversation, the one they had, that is look at all the external pressures. Mm-hmm. When you look at this and you look at that, Lost Ark is a thing in the West now, period. New World is proving to add content. And so people can say that it's dead all the time, but they're adding content. They're supporting it. It has a community around it.
The July update looks amazing.
You see people that are super hyped on, what, did Star Citizen have a beta thing this weekend or something like that? Something like that. And then you've got a new ESO expansion.
Yeah.
You've got new Final Fantasy content. You've got a relatively recent patch for WoW. I mean, their patch cycles, but they've got hype as they build into an expansion. So there are a lot of people that may be considering returning. I think Diablo 2 is midway through a season. So and that's just the games that the friends in my life are playing. I know there's people playing Destiny right now. And that's just the games that my friends are regularly telling me that they're playing right now. A couple of my friends, we hopped back into Forza Horizon this last week because we were excited about the Forza Motorsports.
I want to play that. I haven't played that yet.
That made us go back into Forza Horizon as a result of the announcement for Forza Motorsports. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a lot going on in gaming right now. There's a lot of games out there, especially with things like Game Pass. My brother and I were playing some Game Pass, 2-player co-op RPG, No One Saves the World or something. We're having a blast in it. We just downloaded it for free this weekend. So it wasn't that Final Fantasy did anything wrong. It was just that it has to compete against literally every other game that's on the market right now. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes it's just gonna lose because there's just too much else out there.
Anyway, guys, what did you guys think about these numbers? Do you feel like the PvP has been a positive impact on your world? Sound off in the comments, let us know, and then hopefully we'll see you guys later this week as we roll out some new videos now that I am back from vacation. And more, we'll be talking about the upcoming patch 6.2, the live letter, getting that scheduled, getting that locked on your all's calendars as well. So lots to be excited about as we build up to 6.2. I think 6.2 is going to be a really interesting time for the game, because there's just questions that we've kind of had, and now we'll start to actually see they kind of even it out. So Chris, why don't you take us out?
Guys, feel free to, if you hung out this long and you want more content from us, we do record a lot of these while I'm live over on Twitch. This week is Lore Week, so I'll be going through Guild Wars lore for my very first time, starting every stream with Final Fantasy stuff, because I got to keep the lead on Brian. So come hang out there. If you want to know when all these patch schedules are taking place, I put a video over on Gaming Kinda outlining all of the upcoming patches for Final Fantasy XIV. Just kind of put rough dates on it for people that are wondering, well, when is 6.2 and when would 6.3 fall and so on. So go check those out. Good to have Brian back, and we look forward to getting more stuff here. Big stuff coming this Friday. We'll see you next time.
Take care.